So welcome to the Fitchburg Cultural Council's special meeting. Today is August 23rd. It's 4:35 p.m. The Fitchburg Cultural Council is a volunteer body that's put in place by the City of Fitchburg, the Mayor's Office specifically, and we're part of the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and our mission is to support the arts and humanities in the state of Massachusetts, specifically in our LCC, or Local Cultural Council of Fitchburg. We welcome the public, and the public are welcome to speak on any topic that's on the agenda tonight. Everything here is recorded and kept on record for the public and for the future, so anything that we say this evening is recorded for history. We have tonight with us one member of the public, so we want to thank you for coming. It's Monique Guthrie from In Town. Monique, did you have anything that's on the agenda tonight? Thank you. All right, so we have, by way of just announcement, we have an announcement from Liz Murphy related to grants.
Thank you, Tamar. The Mass Cultural Council currently has cultural sector recovery grants for organizations and for individual artists that are available. You can go directly to the Mass Cultural Council's website to apply and just click on their links. It looks like they are taking applications through September 28th of this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. All right, so we're going to move to our second agenda item this evening, which is new members. We have worked with a member of the public who was interested and isn't interested at this time. So since we don't have any guests here interested in membership, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is to approve the minutes from last week's meeting. So everybody has a copy of that in front of them. It's the Tuesday, August 16th minutes. Could we have a motion regarding these minutes?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion from Liz to approve the meeting minutes from Tuesday, August 16th, and a second from our co-chair, Audrey. Anyone speaking to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So those minutes are approved. Thank you very much. I'm going to file them. The next thing on our agenda is our public input survey from last week. We weren't able to finish this last week, so we're going to finish this tonight. So in the pile in front of you, you have a draft of our FY 2023 grant season priorities, and you have a copy of the FY 22 priorities from last year. The FY 23 draft is based on the input that came from the public, and we want to thank the public for submitting the results online, coming to our public input meeting at the Fitchburg Art Museum. We really appreciate everybody's support, and because it helps us to do our job better. And these grant season priorities are what will encourage the public as to the types of grants that they can submit and apply for. So anything, if you're a grantee in the community and you're interested in submitting a grant when the cycle starts 9/1, these are the things that you need to read so that you are aware of the types of things that we're interested in approving, so that they work in harmony with these priorities. And these priorities were given to us by the community. So what we'll do this evening is we're going to read over them one by one so the public hears them, and this is recorded. And what we'll do is, if we could, please, everyone, take a vote on each item as we go through them. Does that work for everyone? Okay. All right, so all applications and supplemental materials must be submitted online. For special assistance, contact the Fitchburg Cultural Council via email, fitchburg.mcc@gmail.com. For initial questions, call the Mayor's Office at 978-829-1800. Based on feedback collected January through August 2022, the Fitchburg Cultural Council will prioritize the following. So number one, priority will be given to applicants who live or work in Fitchburg and who offer programs and presentations that specifically benefit the Fitchburg community. Priority will be given to programs that specifically benefit families, people of color, and those in lower income brackets. So could we take a motion for the first item on our priorities list?
I motion that we approve that item number one.
So we have a motion from Shara to approve number one as written. Anyone want to second the motion?
Second.
We have a second from Eileen. Anyone speaking to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 So priority number one is approved. Number two, Types of programs. Priority will be given to community-wide gatherings and events, festivals, concerts, theater, plays, etc., public art and beautification programs, example murals, and programs that assist or address affordable artists' housing, workspaces, and performance venues. So this is priority number 2, types of programs. Could we take a motion on number 2?
I'll make a motion to approve item number 2.
We have a motion from Audrey to approve. Thank you, Matt, and a second from Matt to approve priority number 2. Anyone speaking to the motion? Joe?
I just want to state for the public's interest more than our own is that these priorities are supplemental to the local cultural council guidelines set by the Mass Cultural Council. So there may be a type of program in here that might fit into our mold, but not in the Mass Cultural Council's guidelines. And so we sort of work hand in hand to try to make sure they both match. So please be sure you're reviewing the Mass Cultural Guidelines as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else speaking to the motion? Okay, so we had a motion from Audrey for number 2 and a second from Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
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 So number 2 is approved. Number 3 is on publicity. It says priority will be given to applicants that describe a marketing plan detailing action steps to promote their program to Fitchburg residents. For example, local newspapers, newsletters, mass mailings, banners, and flyers all around Fitchburg. Example, Main Street, Mill Street, Library, City Hall, community centers, etc., and online, social media, Evite, YouTube, community calendars, official website, etc. Programs or projects that spread awareness of Fitchburg programs locally and beyond are also encouraged. So this is number 3 on publicity. Could we entertain a motion on number 3?
So moved.
So we have a motion from Eileen.
I'll second. Sorry.
It's a tie.
Liz can have it.
Liz seconded number 3. Anyone want to speak to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
So that's motion number 3 on publicity. It's approved. Number 4, I'm sorry, I forgot to bold this. It says in-person programs that offer effectual virtual options, i.e. hybrid, will be prioritized. Virtual programs that collaborate with Fitchburg Access Television and invest in bilingual, especially Spanish, and ASL translators will be prioritized over virtual programs that do not. So this is number 4 in regards to hybrid and virtual options. Language. Anyone want to make a motion on number 4?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion from Casey to approve number 4 and a second from Shara. Anyone speaking to the motion? Liz?
I would just, for consistency's sake, like to add a little heading like program location or something along those lines.
That's fair.
Yes, I would suggest program location and bold it.
In bold.
Yeah.
That's fair. Casey, would you like to amend your,
Motion to amend, as Liz said.
You got that?
Second that.
okay, so we have a motion to amend number 4, adding program location in front in bold, and a second from Shara. Anyone else speaking to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
That was great. Thanks, guys. All right, we're going to go on to requirements. Number 1, out-of-town applicants. If you do not live or work in the city of Fitchburg, you're required to provide a letter of support from a local partner. A confirmation from the venue is sufficient. So can I have a motion on requirements number 1, out-of-town applicants?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Audrey to approve and a second from Eileen. Anyone speaking to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So requirements, out-of-town applicants is approved. We're going to flip to the second one, which is dates and venue confirmation letter required. All applicants must provide a confirmation letter from their venue detailing the dates and location. Applicants must specify at least one arranged venue for their activity and a specific date or range of dates. So this is item number 2 under requirements, dates and venue confirmation letter required. Anyone want?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Casey. Audrey? Anyone want to second the motion?
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion from Audrey to approve number 2 and a second from Eileen. Anyone speaking to the motion?
I just have a question. Often, we'll approve something, and the person doesn't have a venue or a date. They send in a commitment letter, and even at that time, some of them don't have a venue or a date. Should we ask that the commitment letters include a venue and a date? Because we're giving money to people before they even have a venue and a date.
If I may, as far as I understand this, in number 2 here, we're requiring both date and venue before we give the grant.
It says confirmation letter instead of a commitment letter. That's why it could be confusing. Maybe we change that to commitment letter instead of confirmation letter.
Audrey?
I'll make an amendment to change my motion to approve number 2, except with the change of venue commitment letter required.
I like it. So,
Okay, so from now on, then I will scan commitment letters to make sure that they have a venue and a date.
okay, so we have a motion from Audrey to amend her,
Oh, just the way, it's fine the way Audrey amended it. I just wanted to add that.
so would you like to second it?
No, it doesn't need to be written
I'll
in.
second
It's
it.
fine the way it is.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion from Audrey to accept number 2 with one change, commitment letter.
Actually, I want to make another change. And also change all applicants must provide a commitment letter from every time. I make a motion to change the word confirmation to commitment
That's what I had. And we have
for every time.
That's all.
Yeah.
and we have a second from Shara. Anyone else speaking to the motion? Joe?
Yes, I just wanted to add that there can sometimes be extenuating circumstances that prevent the booking of the date, and we do not need to write this into the priorities and rules and the guidelines for ourselves, but we as a council do have the authority to make exceptions in these cases.
Thank you. So all in favor?
Aye.
Could, Joe, could I get you to pass a set down for Sam? Thanks. Give Sam a second while we're waiting, Audrey.
Should I make a motion to change on item number 1 to a commitment letter from the venue is sufficient?
We already approved it.
It's a confirmation letter before.
I know. We approved it as it was, though.
But I mean, should I make a new vote to change that?
If you'd like
So
to
it's
make a new motion, I'll accept it.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to modify item number 1 to say a commitment letter from the venue is sufficient, so that it is consistent.
Would anyone like to do a second motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a amended movement on item number 1 under requirements to change to a commitment letter, and Shara has seconded that motion. Anyone speaking to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Sam, we are on number 3 under requirements on the FY 2023 grant season priorities sheet.
It's on the back of it.
So number 3 is partners and advisors. It says, when you are listing local contributors, partners, please provide name and list their qualifications and in what way they will be assisting you. Can we entertain a motion on number 3?
I motion that we accept that as is.
We have a motion from Shara. Anyone want to second the motion?
I'll second.
I heard Liz first, so we'll take Liz second. Anyone speaking to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
So under requirements, number 3 is approved on partners and advisors. Number 4 is virtual programming guidelines. It says applicants for a virtual programming application must reside in North Central Massachusetts, or the program must have campaigns promoting specifically to the Fitchburg community. So this is under requirements, motion number 4. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve number 4 with the addition of virtual programming guidelines, all in bold.
Thanks, that's
Sorry.
that is fair. Okay.
Second.
And we have, so we have a motion on the table from Audrey to approve number 4 with bolding. My
Second by
mistake.
Shara.
Oh, we had a second from Casey, so we're good. So anyone speaking to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
So item number 4 under requirements is approved. In the online version, there's a link to the results, the survey results, which is what you see next. And then we have notes on funding. So number 1, these are pretty much similar to last year, give or take. You can compare with the sheet next to you. Funding limits. In order to fund as many viable projects as possible, the Fitchburg Cultural Council will be capping grants at 1,000. You may wish to request more than 1,000 and are welcome to include it in your application. If after granting monies to all viable projects, there are still remaining funds to be dispersed, the council will award additional funds according to the priorities listed above. So can we take a motion on funding limits?
I'll motion that we pass that writing as it is.
We have a motion from Shara,
Second.
a second from Eileen. Anyone speaking to the motion? Joe, and then Liz.
I would just like to recommend the council consider removing the cap of $1,000 and suggest that we may cap things at $1,000, simply because we do not know how much funds we will be receiving in the coming fiscal year. Oh, we do. When did that just come in this week?
Just saw it, yeah.
Okay. Well, we may be able to fund more than 1,000 on some projects based on I just saw a number. I don't know if that's been made public yet.
It's on our
Liz?
administrative page, so I'm not sure if it's public yet.
So you had a comment?
Oh, yes. My comment was similar to Joe's in that I thought our practice has been in the last couple of years, at least that from what I've seen from the grants, that we've been capping at a larger amount because we had enough money to do that. So I just think the statement, instead of the statement that suggests that we are going to cap as opposed to we may cap, be changed, just like Joe said.
Joe?
I just want to add, one of the things that has come up over the years with the institution of that $1,000 cap is that many applicants, even though we put in here for them to ask for more, they tend to ask for only the 1,000, and they're limiting their ability to do something more great and wonderful than they're already submitting. And we want to encourage them to ask for as much money as they feel they can use, but also be able to operate in a scaled down amount in case we can't give it all.
Thank you. Shara, would you like to amend your motion?
I motion that we put the funding limits in order to fund as many viable projects as possible. The Fitchburg Cultural Council may be capping grants at $1,000 and maybe changing the words to we encourage you to request what you need, even if it's more than $1,000. And then the rest of it to stay as it is.
Does that work for you?
Just one moment.
Me too.
Okay. So Shara's edit is may cap grants at 1,000, and we encourage you to request what you need as an addition. So Shara made this motion. Would anyone like to second the motion?
The second?
Thanks, Casey. Anyone speaking to the motion? Audrey?
During the public input forum, this topic was discussed, and so I'm curious, for those who are advocates of it, do you feel like that we even need this paragraph?
Do we need this paragraph?
Joe?
It's not entirely necessary. Historically, we do cap. If we feel we're not going to have a cap that we'll work with, it's certainly up to the council to decide. So I defer to the council on that decision.
Audrey?
I'll say, for one, since we do ask, and in the budget to include other ways that they are receiving funding, that applicants do need to be able to plan in advance of how much they would likely get from one local cultural council, and if they're applying to another local council, they have to include that in their budget. So it does help, but I also understand like the issue that it might deter people as well, or limit themselves.
Anyone else speaking to this motion? Liz and then Shara.
I guess I would suggest that we change this to say, in order to fund as many viable projects as possible, the Cultural Council has capped in the past, cap isn't the right word, though. Or I guess, I think it would be helpful if we note what the top grants were in last session, right? It was something around 1,700. So we could say, you know, last year's grants were capped at around 1,700. We have a little more funding this year. We like to fund as many eligible grant applications as possible.
Shara?
I'm with Liz, and I was pretty much in the same space, so maybe the wording is, in order to fund as many viable projects as possible. In the past, we have capped grants at $1,000. We have a little more funding this year, or maybe we granted $1,700 was our largest grant last year. We encourage you to request what you need, and then the next section talks about having other sources. So I don't have the exact words, but I think we're getting closer to it.
I think we're getting closer to. I like it as well because I think it gives structure and gives some guidelines. Because sometimes people start a project, they have no concept of what it's going to cost. And as they get into it, they start realizing, oh, this is going to cost me $500, that's $200, that's $80, this is $50. So having some sort of structure where if the council is saying, especially if they really need these funds, by giving them a structure, we're sort of saying we can't fund everything possibly, but we'll do what we can. Joe, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think we could just simplify the statement around the cap itself and have it state that the Fitchburg Cultural Council may initiate a funding limit on grants depending on number of applications received and so forth.
Liz?
How about if we say, what Joe said, the Fitchburg Cultural Council may limit the grant award in order to fund as many viable projects as possible. And then we could say, last year, the top grant award was approximately $1,700.
I like that. Okay, Audrey?
Not Casey. So on our website, I assume that it'll look like how it did in previous years, in which it'll have our council priorities and guidelines. And I think at the bottom, it will have our FY22 funding list. So I'm on there right now, and it looks like our highest was 1537. Unless, yeah, I don't think I see a next tab.
Eileen?
Last year, in the last grant go-around, there were a couple people who asked for like $3,000 and $4,000. At least one of them I thought didn't have a shot at getting $3,000. Don't you think, getting back to the commitment letter, I don't think we should give money, say we give somebody $1,000 who's going to need $3,000 to do their program. I don't think we should give money to somebody until they show us that they have all the money they need to do the program. I'm not sure we have anything right now in our bag of tricks that allows us to do that, to turn down a commitment letter until they assure us that they have all the money to do their program.
Audrey?
So I think So on the application, assuming the application has same questions as previous years, one of the questions is, what happens if you cannot receive the full amount requested? And from there, we can kind of decide whether or not that sounds sufficient. Or maybe we could include somewhere in here that, like, in that question, please let us know what the minimum amount that you would need from us. I don't know.
Maybe, maybe we could include another line in the commitment letter. When the person comes and commits to the program and says they want to perform it, we're asking them to give us the date for sure and the venue for sure. Maybe we should evidence that they have enough money to, or have enough backers to to finish the program, to complete the program. Yeah.
All right, we got a couple more comments, and then I want to wrap this up. Let's go to Shara.
I just want to say, as an artist and a grant recipient, that sometimes it takes one amount of funding in order to be able to get other funding. And so requiring that they have all the funding, it feels limiting, especially if we're trying to encourage people to be able to actualize their projects. And they're not always events. It's not just events. So sometimes it's a project that has a looser time frame anyway. So I feel like putting that in the like bylaws, kind of, it presumes a certain limiting thought.
Thank you. Liz?
I think in our bylaws or other policies and procedures, we could require that before we actually give the funding. We could approve a grant application because sometimes the grantee is applying for a number of things at the same time, a number of sources at the same time for an event that's going to happen, say, next spring or summer. They may not know if they've gotten the commitments to from these other organizations when they apply to us, but we could certainly require that they give us those commitment letters before we issue any funding to them. So it would mean that we approve somebody in that situation if they're eligible, but we wouldn't issue the funding to them until we know that they can take on the activity with the other sources.
Joe?
I have two comments. One was just a point of order. Is this line of discussion related to the motion on the table about funding limits?
It is.
Okay, just want to be sure. And my comment to the suggestion is I'm not necessarily in favor of it, simply because I'm trying to think of the administrative nightmare that the person responsible for making sure that all 60 or so applicants or more this year we may be funding, that they all produce the necessary paperwork before distributing the funds. So if the council is prepared for the administrative expense of that work, then I welcome you to approve it.
So we had a motion on the table from Shara to accept number 2 with the adjustment of May cap grants, and we encourage you to request what you need. Shara, do you want to amend your motion?
I do. My motion would be to write it out as Fitchburg Cultural Council may initiate a funding limit on grants in order to fund as many viable projects as possible. Last year, the highest award was approximately $1,537. And then continue on with if after grant monies for viable projects, and continue it as it is.
Anyone want to second the motion?
I'll second it.
I got Matt first, so we have a second from Matt. Anyone speaking to the motion? Joe?
I just wanted to ask that if we all vote in favor of this, that Shara provide the specific wording to Matt.
Thank you.
I will.
You're welcome.
And I have one last thing. In the fourth line, this is just a little typo. It says dispersed, as in spread, but I think we mean dispersed with a B. If I can, I don't know if we need to amend the motion to change that. It's a homonym, so maybe it's okay.
So what was the word?
Dispersed.
Dispersed.
Is it misspelled, or you just wanted to?
Dispersed with B-U-R-S-E-D implies
E.
Oh.
disseminating
Okay.
money versus
Right, there you
cast
go.
into the winds.
Like it's coming out of your purse.
Okay.
Ah.
Thank you. So all in favor of Shara's motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Can I say
So
something?
Shara, you're going to send that to Matt.
I will email it to Matt.
Thank you.
Or
All right.
give it to him at the end of the meeting, either way.
As quickly as we can, would be great. Can we move on to funding sources?
Oh, can I say something first?
Is it in regard to funding limits?
It's, yes, somewhat. It's related to the conversation that we were having right before we voted. It's not included on here, but we do need a vote on if we are going to continue doing direct grants or doing reimbursement grants as our process. And perhaps if we decide to switch to reimbursement grants, that might address your concern, Eileen, but it also might make it difficult for the artists or organizers.
So since I don't have that on the agenda right now, and I don't have that on here, and that's my oversight,
Can
we'll
I-
save that for next time.
Oh, we have to vote, we have to decide on that.
It's
Not on
applicable
here.
to vote on that. It's part of the priorities and guidelines and what we're going to do with the next grant season.
Okay, Liz?
If we took no vote on it, would it mean that we would continue with our current practice?
Yes.
So let's go to funding sources. I'd like to get through this document first. Funding sources. As always, we encourage applicants to seek multiple sources of funding. On your application, you must list all other sources of financial assistance and grants that you have applied for and/or received. If your project will not happen without funding from the Fitchburg Cultural Council, you must let us know. For links to other programs and grants offered by the Mass Cultural Council, please visit, and there's a link here, massculturalcouncil.org/about/programs-A as in apple, dash Z as in zebra. So can we take a motion on funding sources?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion from Liz, a second from Casey. Anyone speaking to the motion?
No?
No? All in favor?
Aye.
So we got that one done. All right, so the next thing is the grant training. Was the 9:15 set in stone? For grant trainings?
Am I doing this?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that still works for you, right, Eileen? Thursday, September 15th, 5:30 to 6:30 PM via Zoom. Still have to figure out a Zoom link. We mentioned it at the public input meeting.
Do you have a place for it?
I think you said that you wanted to do it over Zoom.
Okay. Oh,
So-
right, okay.
We can change that.
No, that's fine, that's fine. No, I'm glad it's going to be Zoom. I thought you might have planned that we get together or something for it. But that's okay, we can do it over Zoom.
So maybe we could just vote on the date tonight, and then we can try to schedule a second one, since there wasn't a second date.
My thought was we got very little interest. I thought we might get more if we did it Zoom. We'll see about that. If it picks up and if we hear from people who need another one, we can set another one. But last year we did 2 of them and we really didn't have much interest.
Audrey?
If we do one in person, I wonder if it might be a good idea to reserve a room in the library, because I feel like the library just seems like a good place for the public to meander in and find out about grants and learn how to write a grant.
Matt likes that idea. Joe?
I'm in support of having at least one of the 2 sessions in person. There are so many people that don't use computers that we may be overlooking, and some of them would be artists who might be interested in figuring out how to do this.
I can't hear you, Joe. Could you repeat that?
Sure thing. We have several members of the community that do not use computers, are computer illiterate in certain circumstances, and would welcome an in-person training. And I think the library is actually a perfect venue because they can see how they can access computers within the library so that they could apply for their grants.
Well, none of them showed up last year, but maybe we can have, it seems to me to have two of them, you know, and have one person showed up on Zoom and one person showed up in real life, and both of them were, you know, computer competent. But maybe we could have the one on September 15th in a place in the library and offer it for Zoom or walk-in. How about that?
So would anyone like to make a motion that we'll do a grant training 9:15 at the Fitchburg Public Library, provided the Fitchburg Public Library is in agreement, and then we can move it to Zoom, if that doesn't work.
Like
Okay, so we'll
hybrid?
offer it for Zoom or walk-in.
Yep.
All right, and it'll be the same, the time and place is fine.
Okay,
So hybrid?
hybrid. Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we publicize Thursday, September 15th, from 5:30 to 6:30 for a hybrid meeting, both Zoom and the Fitchburg Public Library, on the contingency that their space is available.
Thank you. Anyone want to second the motion?
I second the motion.
Second from Eileen. So we have a motion from Shara to approve this event and time pending library approval, and a second from Eileen. Anyone speaking to the motion? Casey?
I think it would be pertinent for us to try to get translators, both ASL and other language translators, so we will be leading by example going into this grant season.
Thank you. That's a good idea. Anyone else speaking to the motion? Casey, Audrey?
So for that, we'll have to dip into the administrative funds. So we might want to take a look at that and also figure out that resource. But I like that idea.
And that way we can be ready when people come to us.
So let me see if I can picture this, okay? Audrey, you and I are going to meet in the library on September 15th at 5:30 with one translator, two translators. What are you thinking? Somebody.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many translators? Spanish, of course.
Spanish and ASL,
ASL.
I think were the two.
And what?
ASL.
American
Sign
Sign
Language.
Language.
All right. Well, I'll leave that to you, Audrey, because I have no idea.
So let's vote on this. So all in favor of
It
these?
looks like they
Speaking to
have,
the motion, please.
Huh?
they want
There's
to
a couple
speak to
would like to
the-
speak to the motion.
Oh, on this end. All right, very good, Liz.
Do we know that the library has the capacity to do hybrid meetings, in person and
To do what?
virtual like this?
I do not.
I don't know that the library has that. They may have the capacity, but
To do what? To do
to
what?
do a hybrid meeting that's both virtual and in person.
We've done it before. We did it last time. Didn't we, Audrey? We did, yeah. We had somebody online, and we were talking to that person, and we had somebody
Okay.
there who was, so it worked pretty well. If we were mobbed with 15 people, 7 there, 8 online, you know, I don't know how that would work, but we have done it.
Audrey?
Yeah, we can just use my laptop and just go on Zoom. I could also see if we can borrow the OWL 360 camera from FATV as well.
Joe?
I just want to state for the council that we have a civic obligation to be as accessible as possible. This really doesn't require a vote, but we just need to understand amongst ourselves that we will do everything we can to make our meetings and trainings accessible to everyone.
Thank you, Joe. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so for the public, we'll have a grant training, pending location, hopefully the library, 9:15, 5:30 to 6:30, and we'll do our best to have it on Zoom, and we'll do our best to have ASL in Spanish for that part of our community.
Hi.
Audrey, which item are we talking about?
Under this section, we didn't vote on the text, so I would like to vote to approve the text, except changing the last line to a second training will be announced via social media if needed.
Okay, so Audrey's making a motion to approve the text under grant training sessions, which for the public says there will be 2 grant training sessions held during the 2022 open application season. Attendees will be guided through the entire application entire application and reporting process, leaving time for questions at the end. A second training will be announced if needed via social media. So we have a motion from Audrey. for that. Would anyone like to second the motion?
Second.
Can I speak to the motion?
Yep, we have a second from Eileen. Shara?
So I think this is just a technicality. There will be a grant training session held during the 2022 application season, and then at the end it says a second training will be scheduled as needed.
Audrey, would you like to amend your motion?
Yes, I would like to amend my motion to say there will be a grant training session held during the 2022 open application season.
Anyone want to second the amended motion?
Second.
Eileen, anyone speaking to the motion?
I just want to say that adding at the end the sentence, a second training will be scheduled as needed.
Yeah, we have that.
Okay, because it wasn't said by Audrey, so just wanted to make sure.
Liz?
I just wanted to make a point that typically when two separate trainings are scheduled, it's because somebody might have a conflict with one of the dates and times, so we don't, I would encourage us to have that second training for those that can't make it to the first because of a conflict on that day, not because they can't get there physically or virtually.
Thank you, Liz. We do want to say to the public that we're here to help. That's the point.
Yeah.
Right? This point of the training is that we're available. You can message us on Facebook. If you know any of us that you see here today and you have questions, certainly we're available. And the Mass Cultural Council offers us lots of resources. And you can also come to a meeting, our third Tuesday of the month, and we're available to help with the grants. So all in favor of
Aye.
the adjusted motion here?
Aye.
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 Okay, so the grant training sessions have passed. Can we move on to the last item? Is everybody ready? So the last piece is which I didn't include on this, is the direct grants. So last year we did direct grants, which means the individuals in the community can get the funding before they've completed their project or their program. So would we like to stick with this, or would we like to adjust it for this year? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to stick with it?
Second the motion.
So we have a motion from Casey to continue with the direct granting process, and a second from Shara. Anyone speaking to the motion?
It seems to make sense.
Excuse me,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Joe?
I just want to inform the council that it is my personal opinion that you will regret your decision to do reimbursement grants. It is a paperwork nightmare. We did it in the first couple of years while I was chair, and there are dozens of cities and towns around Massachusetts that have adopted this to do the direct funding because it is far easier. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Eileen?
Well, it seems to make sense since that's the way we've been doing it. And actually, all of these motions, all of these priorities that we've already agreed on seem to lead into that. So it doesn't make any sense to me to change it now.
Thank you very much. Shara?
I just want to speak to it that one of the things about grant funding that always seems counterintuitive is reimbursement grants, because if you need the money to do a project, you don't have the money, and getting it before you do the project makes more sense than having it as a marker, like I've been approved for this money, and then having to go to a bank or something and get them to give you the money and then pay them back. It just seems way more direct, way more efficient, and way more supportive of artists.
And that's what we're here to do. Audrey?
I believe in the LCC guidelines, they said for, while we may select either direct grants or reimbursement grants, they do allow under reimbursement grants to do kind of like a payment system of like, we'll give you like the first 2/3 of it, and then the final third with the final report or whatever. Or they can also do, like periodic releases of the money. But of course, as Joe mentioned, that's adding a whole nother layer of work, which really is relevant to Eileen and Liz. So I'm curious to hear how Liz feels about this as well.
Well, I think, go ahead, Liz.
I would support us continuing to do direct grants, yeah.
So we have a motion from Casey to continue to accept direct grants. We have a second from Shara. Anyone else speaking to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
So direct grants it is for this year. So that completes our priorities for the night. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to the public for everyone submitting their forms online and coming to the Fitchburg Art Museum. Thanks, everyone. We have a few minutes left. I have the Fitchburg, yep, we're doing that next. So quickly, Fitchburg Open Studios, a couple of things. I got an adjusted sign quote, and I need your approval to submit it. It's a few cents difference, but I just want to do it the right way. So in last week's minutes, you all approved $698.80. I had to get an adjusted quote based on some measurements from the Capodaglis at the Boulder Art Gallery because they're holding the signs for us. Thank you very much, Peter. The adjusted amount is $698.50. I would just like to get permission to put the order in, and this is for 20 24 by 80 vinyl signs to cover the old ones. So it's literally stick-on vinyl. 44 26 by 6.5 to cover vinyl, old signs, which we can reuse now every year. And then we're gonna do 4 34 by 6 signs. So if I could get approval for these funds, I can get the order in. So the adjustment is from $698.80 to $698.50.
I motion we approve the adjustment of funds to $698.50.
Motion from Shara to approve the adjusted funds.
I'll second.
A second from Liz. Anyone speaking to the motion? And Audrey, Casey, I will get you the number that you asked about last week. I have not forgotten. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. I got to get the order in right away. Matt has brought us a draft of the brochure that'll go out to the public. If everyone could just look at it before they leave this evening, then I can also get that printed, and thank you to Fitchburg State for printing them for us. That's a big help. Shara, did you say you wanted to speak about the Fitchburg Open Studios?
I just
Oh,
saw
that
it on
looks
the
great.
agenda. Fine.
Oh, okay. So this came up at the last PR subcommittee meeting. It was suggested that we might, in future years, consider moving Fitchburg Open Studios to another organization. So I'd like to make the recommendation that after we get through this year's Fitchburg Open Studios, we might encourage the Fitchburg Cultural Alliance to be the host, since they will be Main Street Studios on Main Street and will be the actual studios until B.F. Brown opens. And just so you know the history of the Open Studios, this was Peter's idea. Peter Capodagli is the owner of the Fitchburg, the Boulder Art Gallery at the top of the Common. And this was his idea because he knew that eventually the B.F. Brown building would be open and there would be lots of artists here with studios all in walking distance of his gallery in the Art Museum. So he's the one who started this, and this is the 3rd year. It would have been the 4th except for COVID. And Audrey mentioned at the last PR subcommittee meeting that it might be something that we could house at a different location than with the council. And obviously then the council could fund it and be a supporter, of course, but it would be a different role for us since we also time out and roll over. So I'd like to put this out to the council. If we could vote on it tonight, just to maybe suggest to the Alliance that we might like for them to take it on. That's my recommendation. If I'd be open to the council's comments really briefly. I want to keep it brief. We can always talk about this again next month. But if anyone would be moved to make a vote to suggest it to them, of course, we'd have to get their board's approval to take it. So it's a bit of a back and forth with correspondence. But, Joe?
Madam Chair, I'd like to suggest a motion to make this easier.
Yep.
The motion, what I am, for those in the public that don't know, I am the president of the board for the Fitchburg Cultural Alliance, and I'm planning a board meeting coming up in the next few weeks. And I can put this matter on the agenda if the council would like the Cultural Alliance to take over the Fitchburg Open Studios project. And I think the best way to do that would be to make a motion to permit the transfer of the Open Studios event to the Fitchburg Cultural Alliance pending their support of the same.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
And I just want to say I wanted to talk to Peter this morning, and I called him just to get his blessing. And he thought because there will be studios across the street, it would be a great house for it. So I'm going to get emotional. That's not good. So could we have a motion to recommend that Fitchburg Open Studios get rehoused from the council to the Fitchburg Cultural Alliance across the street?
I am so moved as Joe suggested the move should be described.
Anyone want a second?
I'll second that.
So we have a motion to recommend that the Fitchburg Cultural Alliance, with their board, take over the Fitchburg Open Studios. All right, so we have a motion from Audrey and a second from Casey. Anyone speaking to the motion?
I'll speak. I think that this will make our lives so much easier because as of right now, I think Tamar is doing the majority of the work. And so I think letting another organization become the home of it, Tamar and anyone else from the council that would like to volunteer to help with organizing Fitchburg Open Studios will also have the help of the Alliance to help with organizing and a whole wealth of like volunteers for it. I just think that it'll be a lot easier.
Joe?
There's a motion and second on the table, right? Okay, I just wanted to let the council know that the Cultural Alliance, in my opinion, the board may disagree with me, but in my opinion, I believe that we are fully capable of taking on that responsibility and executing that event with great success. In fact, we'll be partnering with all of the same people who are working on it today, and we'll be adding our own paid employees to assist. So I think we can find room within the organization to do that, and that will be the case I'll make to the board when we meet with them, so if the council approves this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure Peter's memory is not forgotten.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We will write the Alliance, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's the end of the agenda tonight, unless anybody else has anything. If we could take a motion to adjourn, it is 5:27.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Casey.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn from Casey and a second from Liz.
Shara.
We are adjourned.
It was Shara.
Shara, what'd I say? Like, I was-
Liz.